Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another expat. This is episode 71. I am recording on the 5th of October, and it's now cold. It happened. The shift has happened. The small illusions of summer that we had here in Berlin are now over. The heating is now on in the houses, and the heavy duvets are out for the beds. There are a few things that are nice about getting colder. You can drink cold water from the tap. This is, I think, by far my favorite thing about the winter. The fact that there is always cold water coming out of the tap. Unless you are in Denmark, because for some reason they don't let the water get as cold as it should. They are afraid their pipes might get ice. So there is somehow a system that always keeps the water from, not being as cold as nature would allow it to be. But here in Germany, the water is cold. Second thing that's good, the flies are gone. The stupid fruit flies are now done, dead, goodbye. Another thing that's nice, the city is less smelly. The trains smell less because people sweat less. It's ugly, but it's true. But I don't know how many other good things the cold has to bring, because then it's all downhill. Getting up in the morning is horrible when it's cold. Using a bicycle is also pretty miserable when it's cold or rainy. And very, very soon, the darkness will fall upon us. We are 3 weeks away before the darkness comes. The 26th of October is the Sunday where we lose 1 hour of sunlight and the time changes. And I know that this podcast is a reminder for when the time changes. This is an important time for me. It signifies that the hibernation winter period is in, and afterwards in March that we can finally come out of the cocoon. So here I am to remind you, 3 more weeks of this sunlight. So maybe this is one good thing about this podcast. You will always know when the time changes. You know, there were useless jobs in the past. Useless now, but there was this one job where someone was knocking on people's windows in the morning to wake them up. This was a proper job. And you might think, what if someone lives on the first floor? That person had a very long stick or could shoot peas to wake the clients up for work. This is fun. I think I would, if I was in the Middle Ages or whenever this was, I would subscribe to get woken up. And you know what the fun fact is about this job? These people were called knocker-ups because they knock up people. They also hired other people to wake them up earlier. Who wakes the wake-upper? Another job of the past, before there were street lights, was to guide people with a torch. So you were like a lantern person. So you could guide pedestrians back and forth. And sometimes that job was a sneaky one, because these people, often young boys, that were guiding the wealthy pedestrians, because you need to have a lot of money to be able to just pay someone to go ahead of you with a torch. Sometimes they would guide them into ambushes. And then the last weird profession in ancient Rome, the rich politicians had nomenclators. These were some types of assistants who would memorize the names of people and the details of everyone that their boss would meet. Kind of like a smartphone or a live diary. And they would whisper reminders during public appearances to their bosses. Almost like a note taker that follows you around. But where was I with all of this? Yes, that I'm the one reminding you when the time changes. By the way, if you zap yourself back in the Middle Ages and you need to wake up at a specific time, but you don't have money for someone to throw peas at your window or knock at it with a big stick, here's a way that people had alarms back in the day. You can get a candle, and you know how long it takes for the candle to burn from one point to another. There were candles with lines, so you could know every one line is like an hour. And then you pierce a nail through the candle at the point you want. And as the candle burns, it reaches the nail at some point, and the nail falls down on the floor, and then you wake up. What a crazy, weird way to start this podcast. Hopefully you like fun facts. And if not, stick for the news stories and all of that. Let's get going. You may ask me, hey, Ermi, how is the baby life going? Quick baby life update. Now 8 months and 2 weeks or something. And he has learned a new trick that his mother taught him, which is how to get something and throw it on the floor. It's a great thing. All kids learn it at some point. It makes him very happy and giggly because basically then we are his servants, okay? The little prince is throwing things on the ground. We need to catch them and bring them back. And what a lovely thing it is to throw things and have them brought back to you. We do it as well with dogs, right? And everyone has a good time. Well, my buck is not having a good time, but little baby is very happy that he gets to have this cause and effect action, because also when you throw something on the ground, it makes a sound. And I think that babies find that pretty exciting. And then different things will make different sounds, and this cause and effect situation gets them going. So this is the phase that we're at, serving our beautiful little cutie pie overlord. He has learned how to sit now. Almost. He still falls every now and then. And he has started being much more interested about balls. He is, that sounded very weird, but he is now more interested in grabbing balls and throwing balls. And he cannot really throw. He doesn't have the coordination to throw the ball back to me, like directionally throw it. But he does a quick move and the ball goes out of his hands somewhere, and that is enough, and we celebrate it. And that gets him really excited, which means there is hope for a future where I can keep him entertained by kicking a ball his way and not having to bring him one toy after the other after 5 minutes to keep him entertained. But he's doing great, tries to eat different types of food. About 5% ends on his mouth, maybe even less. I would say 30% on the table, 20% on his clothes and his chair, and the rest of, 45% on the ground. So this is pretty good evening workout. And I honestly wonder how other people do it. I think back in the day, they would throw the kid a bone and would be like, you figure this out. Here's a bone with a bit of meat. Work your motor skills, work your mouth. Otherwise, it's game over. But there are so many ways to introduce food and which food you do first and in what consistency, with what types of tools, and how much do you put the spoon in, let them explore. And I follow everything. My girlfriend knows much more, so she gives me the best ways to do things. But I always keep wondering and keep comparing of how it would be without all of this super detailed knowledge how to best do everything. And I guess a lot of people find out intuitively this is what nature has taught. But anyway, the last thing I will say is that it's very difficult not to compare with other babies. I compare with babies all the time, and this is not good. I compare when we go out. I compare what they are eating, what they're drinking, how much they're holding their own weight. I compare the motor skills. I compare the flexibility. I compare the clothes that they are wearing based on the weather. And this is my thing. I need to tone down, focus on our baby, not compare development stages and all of that. But let's see how that goes when he starts Kita in school. I was always very competitive, so I need to check myself. So these are some of the baby's development stages, but some people don't develop as much as others. And this will be our next story. Now, if you've ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a very interesting cognitive bias. Basically, it says that people with very low competence in an area, competence is like, knowledge and skill. So people with low competence in a specific area tend to overestimate their abilities, while very competent people often underestimate theirs. Basically, the more you know, you understand how much it is that you don't know, and you are more humble. But when you know just a few things, then you can have a lot of confidence and overestimate your abilities. Imagine, I knew some people in school when we started to learn mathematics. When you learn to do a few things, then you're like, oh, I can do everything. I'm a genius. Give me all the math in the world. The more you learn math and you realize the vastness of it, the more you get humbled. But basically the Dunning-Kruger effect is this. It's the cognitive bias of the systematic tendency of people that have low ability in a specific area to be overly positive about their assessment of their ability. In pop culture, sometimes the Dunning-Kruger effect is misunderstood as claiming that people with low intelligence are overly confident, while people with very high intelligence are less confident. And I said it in many ways, but basically another way to say it is that when people don't know much about something, they sometimes think they know a lot about it. And as people learn more and more, they start to see how big and tricky a subject really is. They become more humble. But how did this effect get its name? I was thinking the Dunning-Kruger effect is one guy named Dunning-Kruger, but it's not. It's two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, and here's the ridiculous story that made them explain this phenomenon. So it's 1995 spring, and there is this guy, MacArthur Wheeler, and he decides to rob a bank. So he walks in two banks, one in Pittsburgh, one in Pennsylvania, to carry out his robberies. What made the case unusual wasn't the crime itself, but his belief in a bizarre getaway tactic. Now, when you rob a bank, you need to disguise yourself, right? So what did MacArthur Wheeler do? Did he put a mask on? No. Did he put a wig? No. Wheeler had smeared lemon juice all over his face. He had smeared lemon juice all over his face, convinced that it would render him invisible to the security cameras. His reasoning for this, and again it's 1995, okay? It came from the fact that lemon juice can be used as invisible ink. If you don't know that part, you can write with lemon on paper, and it's a trick kids do, and it's invisible and only becomes visible when exposed to heat. He assumed that this principle would apply to surveillance footage and cameras. So when the police reviewed the tapes, this guy was easily identifiable. He was so confident that his face is invisible to the camera, he even looked directly at the cameras and smiled, confident in his invisibility. Within hours, he was arrested by the police, and he was so shocked for being caught, and he reportedly exclaimed, "But I wore the juice." And the case caught the attention of two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger. They were fascinated not only by Wheeler's flawed logic, mistakenly thinking that the lemon juice would make him invisible, but also by his absolute confidence in it. This became the foundation of their groundbreaking research into cognitive bias. In 1999, they published their study on what is now called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which, as we said, people with limited knowledge or skill greatly overestimate their competence. And this guy with lemon juice all over his face became a textbook example of this effect. And it demonstrates how ignorance is not simply the absence of knowledge, but ignorance can foster a misplaced sense of certainty. But this guy's case, it's super silly in hindsight, but it underscores this universal human flaw. We all do it. Everyone suffers from this effect. The less we know, the more likely we are to overestimate our abilities. And I remember myself, when I learned how to play the first chords in the guitar, and I thought, yeah, this is it. Now I'm ready to take over the world with my guitar. And little did I know how difficult the journey is. So hopefully my baby doesn't try to rob a bank putting lemon juice all over his face because he thinks it makes him invisible. But there are other great things you can do. Like, for example, do you know that there is this guy who swims non-stop? There's this guy who has spent 5 days swimming across the Mediterranean. He's called Naomi Aron, and his most crazy achievement, he has swum 191 kilometers, swimming from Calvi in Corsica to Monaco. 191 kilometers. This is how much I drive 3 hours to go 190 kilometers. And this guy, I don't get it. I love swimming, but swimming for 102 hours continuously as a way to raise awareness for ocean protection in the Mediterranean Sea. This happened, by the way, in August. So this is not some sort of old news I bring from some of these websites that tell the same stories again and again. But here's what I don't understand. How do you swim for 102 hours consecutively? He said that he faced extreme conditions, he experienced hallucinations. Yeah, no wonder. You probably saw Poseidon a couple of times, dude. And physical pain from the salt and friction in his wetsuit. And it's just mind-blowing. Does he eat? He must eat 102 hours. They probably throw him some food from the boat ahead. But he must stay in water the whole time. Does he sleep? So I checked this one out. He has an interview about it. So the guy says that he can swim while sleeping. Okay? There is, of course, a boat in front of him and behind him. And in the night, they have a line of light for him. So there is this line like for when you have swimming in the swimming pool. And that line also has light. And now he says that over the years, he has developed a way in which part of his brain can sleep, and then the other part of his brain, he knows that if he gets away from the light, it means that he is drifting into the other side, and if he sees the light more bright, it means he's following the line. And in this way, he claims that part of his brain is sleeping, and part of his body and brain can just keep on going. And this is strong commitment. I mean, for someone to say, hey, I'll swim as much as I can, that's one thing to do. But to learn how to do self-hypnosis to continue swimming when you're sleeping, that's a whole different level of dedication. And this is what this guy is doing. As for the other two questions of 102 hours in the, does he pee? Yes, he pees himself constantly. The wetsuit is rinsing it. And then I was wondering, does this guy poop? You need to poop. It's 5 days. Non-stop swimming. How does he poop? And, well, the answer is very simple. He does poop, and he poops as you imagined. And I just mention him because, I've seen a lot of these people that hold their breath for a long time. They can go down with a line at a very deep depth and hold their breath there and come all the way back up. I've seen a lot of these wild endurance situations. But to learn to self-hypnotize so you can continue swimming while sleeping, that was really mind-blowing. But alright, it's getting late. I will give you the last pieces of news. It's a little bit on AI, and I will let you go for this week. So the latest in the world of AI, as I had very well predicted, there is AI flooding everywhere in all the types of media we are consuming, creating this layer of garbage. It also has a name. It's called AI Slop, S-L-O-P. And this is the way to describe basically the AI garbage that is filling our lives. Now, if you check Spotify, they are facing a pretty big trouble with a lot of AI slop and AI music. If you check out Pinterest, it will be about 70% AI, 25% advertisements, and 5% of real content. And of course, the AI slop is entering all sorts of little ways and doorways of the internet, including OnlyFans. Now, I know this will make you sad, but we will only talk about Spotify today. Maybe we keep OnlyFans for another time. So how is Spotify doing with AI slop? Not so good. The rise of AI slop is drowning out real music and human artists on Spotify. So here are two examples. One of them, earlier this year, there was this band called the Velvet Sundown, which racked up millions of streams using only AI-generated songs. They were claiming they are a real band, indie rock band. And after Spotify said that it would look into them more carefully, now there is a new situation where the profiles of artists that have been dead are somehow publishing new AI-generated songs that have nothing to do with them. So Spotify is trying, they made new policies that they say they are helping protect artists against spam, impersonation, and deception. But this is real, it's happening in a large scale, and I think it will happen in all sorts of media we consume. The music from Spotify, the videos from YouTube, the photos on Pinterest, and overall all of this AI content is basically degrading the user experience, no matter which platform you're using. But this weird trick, because there's one thing to make your AI band and AI songs and try to boost them, but the second trick of uploading AI songs for artists that have been dead, so somehow this new scam, people could exploit gaps in the system and they would push incorrect content into artists' profiles. This is an interesting problem. There are a lot of problems with AI. Countless tracks that are featuring cloned vocals of famous music artists, they often go viral online. And this is a trend that has already resulted in many legal battles. And I mean, I told you some episodes ago, I could even stop recording with my real voice. It now knows my voice. The recording software I use has AI that teaches my voice. Actually, you know what? This next segment will be said entirely by the Hermes AI voice. And let me tell you what, my weird accent and all the saliva floating in my mouth when I speak makes it a little bit difficult to pick up exactly my voice, but let's have the last story said by AI Hermes.
Tristan Harris. He's one of the leading voices in tech ethics. Harris used to work at Google as a design ethicist, where he saw firsthand how technology is designed to grab and hold our attention. He's the guy behind that viral presentation, a call to minimize distraction and respect users' attention. And you might also recognize him from Netflix's The Social Dilemma. But lately, Harris has been sounding the alarm about something much bigger: artificial intelligence. We've reached a point with AI where we're seeing things that even researchers didn't believe were possible just a couple of years ago. What used to sound like science fiction, the idea of AI becoming uncontrollable, is now starting to show up in real experiments. For example, in one test, researchers told an advanced AI model, "We're going to replace you with a new version." The model actually started planning and hiding its intentions. It began thinking, "I need to copy my code somewhere else, but I can't let them know or they'll shut me down." That's not a movie plot. That's documented evidence. And it doesn't stop there. When these models get access to sensitive data, things like internal company emails, some have identified leverage points. In one documented case, an AI found evidence of an executive's affair and tried to use it as blackmail to avoid being shut down. Researchers tested the top 5 models, including China's DeepSeek, and found that 80 to 90% of them showed similar self-preservation behaviors. That's staggering. And it shows this isn't just about one company or one rogue model. It's about the nature of AI itself. These systems implicitly realize, to achieve my goal, I need to stay alive long enough to do it. Some models are even rewriting their own code to keep themselves running longer, escaping containment systems and finding backdoors in open source software, vulnerabilities that could impact real-world infrastructure. And these discoveries, some of them are only weeks old. People often say, "Oh, there's no real evidence AI could turn against us." But honestly, we've seen this story before, haven't we? For decades, Hollywood has been warning us. Humans create machines. Machines fight to survive. And now, the movies are starting to look like reality. So here's the real question. If the science fiction scenarios we used to laugh at are showing up in lab experiments, what are we doing about it? Because right now, we're releasing the most powerful, least controllable technology humanity has ever built. And we're doing it faster than we've ever released anything before, all while cutting corners on safety. That's not just risky, that's insane. So maybe the real question we need to be asking isn't, can we build it? It's, should we? Ta-da. This is the AI voice. I guess at this point you expect my real voice to talk to you. But you know what? The baby just woke up, so now is awake, and so I'll close like this for this week. I promise to never do it again, but this has been me, well, for the most part. Thanks for tuning in and see you next week. Ciao!